I'm doing two book reviews. I said that I had finished some books, and I realized the one I just really didn't have much to say about. It's another one of those that is fine. So I don't have a whole lot of anything interesting to say. And that one is Kit McBride Gets a Wife by Amy Berry. And as a romance, and here's the thing. When it comes to fiction, I'm probably most often a horror reader that more than anything else. Occasionally standalone fantasy. I struggle to get through series. That's something that I'm wanting to get better at. I don't particularly like just current fiction that's just set in a current thing. It's kind of a weird thing. I like historical fiction sometimes. It's kind of hit or miss with me with fiction. I struggle with fiction. I'm the odd person that is far more into nonfiction. That's mainly because it's the same reason I struggle finishing TV series. It's because when I get onto something, I really pay attention to it, and I have such a hard time not getting interrupted or interrupting myself in seeing other things that I have a problem when I keep losing the plot thread of fiction. And it's the same thing with TV series. I can't just keep it in the background because I'm like, oh, I missed something important a lot of times. So it's kind of one of those weird things. And we're kind of in nonfiction November, which is neither here nor there to me because I'm always reading nonfiction. But I also finished A to Z, Great Film Directors, which was a very quick read, actually very interesting, kind of fun. Has a lot of pretty sort of layout in it about a lot of different directors that are well known. They talk about ones from Danny Boyle to Kurosawa to Peckinpah, all those different, what we would call great movie directors. Some of them I just think are kind of artsy. Some of them I love and have fallen off, which is why I want to mention they put Dario Argento in here. And I bless him. Dario Argento is one who's gotten kind of a rap recently of being a hack. He is one that his current movies are just not very good, and very, like, not even just not very good in a boring kind of way, which is almost, I feel like some directors, that's what happens with them. They just kind of fall off in the sort of boring direction of things. Dario Argento never did anything not completely, and he, as much as he loves bright colors and different things along those lines, he also crashed and burned as a director as time went on. And it's just one of those situations that I also feel like he gets a rap simply because a lot of the style of his movie also changed. He came into prominence in the Italian giallo movies, and giallo movies were very, very specific to Italy and very, very specific to a time and place, 70s, 60s, 70s Italy, more or less. And because of that, when those sort of came out of fashion and those kind of went away as anything people watched much, they were kind of the granddaddy of the slasher movie. They had a lot of thriller elements, but also a lot of horror elements to them, a lot of very bloody, creative kills a lot of time in them, and they kind of precursed slashers. And when that all sort of went out of fashion, it's like Argento never could, he didn't keep making the same thing because they weren't marketable, and he never moved on to something else either, which with any success. It's just kind of a weird, and he never went back to trying to do giallos again. He's probably best known for Suspiria, which is still considered one of those artsy, beautiful, great movies. Personally, I I think Deep Red. I really like Deep Red that he did, which is just insane. It's an insane movie. A lot of Argentos are, but it was an insane movie, but it's such a pretty movie in like this grimy sort of way. It's really pretty. There's this one shot where they're walking down through this mausoleum, and there's just roses all over this shot, and it's so pretty. And there's so many things, so many artsy things in his shots in Deep Red, and so many creative kills, like some insane kills in Deep Red that I just think it's a really good movie. And it's one of those things that everybody's like, oh yeah, Argento can't make a movie anymore. And it kind of goes along the lines with some other directors too. When they talk about... Now, John Carpenter is probably my favorite director, and they talk about, well, he doesn't make good movies. Well, he's more interested in his music at this point, and he's always never made much of a secret about the fact that he will do a movie for whoever pays him. If you're not going to pay him to do his artsy movies, then he will do the hack movies and not feel really, really bad about it. And that's kind of along the lines of how he operates. And Ridley Scott's another one that I love his early movies, but he has kind of fallen off in his quality. His is more of a boring falling off, I think. It's not so much a disaster artist falling off. And Carpenter's is not so much of a falling off in disaster either. His is more just a falling off, and it's stuff that you can tell he doesn't want to do. You can tell it's just he's slapping something to movie and making a paycheck. But it's interesting who they picked out as some of these movie directors in here, and who they thought was memorable to time. And they kind of tried to do it in this weird sort of alphabetical way, so you're trying to hit these names, that some of them that I was like, you kind of made a stretch there, because I'm not sure that Wim Wenders is one that anybody does a whole lot. Paris, Texas, I've heard of, but Buena Vista's Social Club. But some of these are a little more avant-garde directors that they threw in here for a variety of reasons. But I've hit, like I said, nonfiction. The movie director's interesting. The romance, sort of, you know, it's a Western romance, a historical romance that started out kind of, I thought it was going to be good in the end, that it was just kind of funny, because the main female character, who's not the love interest, is just kind of an interesting character. It's a well-written character. But the actual romance, there was kind of there was a little bit of contrived stuff to it, and I was just sort of not that impressed. Well, it's not that I wasn't that impressed. There's nothing wrong with the book. That's what I'm saying. It's not a bad book. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's just kind of a boring talk about a book, because it's like, well, if you like romances, yeah, it's fine. Go ahead, read it. You'll be entertained. It'll be fine. But when I'm sitting down and like either ranting about a book because I hate it, or raving about it because I love it, it's just one of those that, again, like I said with another book that I just didn't even talk about, there's nothing much to say about it. But anyway, so I would recommend the book about the directors. And if you're into romance, it's a decent romance, but it's nothing that I would have a whole lot to either recommend it or not recommend it. But then I'm not really a romance reader that much anyway. So either way, I have another review because I finished another book, but I will keep it into its own category here with its video. But I've finished this one then, and moving on, which I suppose I'm involved in nonfiction November just by default, just because that's how I am. But moving on.